says in that little blue book there, I was actually given early release on my degree to go out and hit the workforce. We didn't have universities for the real world when I was going through. But I hope I don't get roped into some sort of dual citizenship saga or something. But Acting Chancellor Dr. Leanne Perry, Acting Vice Chancellor Judy Stocker, members of the official party, families of who there are many and supporters, including my own, ladies and gentlemen, and graduates. Graduates, you don't need my inspiration. You are today's inspiration. So congratulations on what you have done. Gaining a degree is a fabulous achievement. And I can tell you that you no longer have to listen to that lecture. Do you know the one I'm talking about? It's the one from the redundant journalist who paints himself as an example that journalism is dead, and because of that you don't need professional communications anymore, because bloggers are ruling the news cycle, the Kardashians of the world and ruling the news cycle, and because of that, they're spending their days creating fake news. You know the lecture I'm talking about. It's that guy that comes along and tells you all this codswallop because the world is changing. And when you walk out of this door, out of these doors today, and you jump into a job, what's going to happen is that you become an agent for change. And that's going to happen for the next 30, 40, 50 years of your lives. When you're not changing the way that you do things yourself, you'll be influencing others and change in the way that they do things. Such is the wonderful and exciting thing that we do. Whether it be the written word or pictures or film or music or dance, it doesn't matter how you tell stories. When you're telling stories, you'll be communicating with generation now, then you'll be communicating with generation next. And you know it, you're a demanding lot. So there'll be new ways of telling stories, there'll be new ways of consuming information, there'll be new ways of living our lives. As communicators, we need to understand that we are the conduits, we're the middlemen. We're the ones who share with others the ebbs and flows of this changing world. Today, I wanted to share with you just a few things which have happened to me during my career, and each of them have involved change. Now first and thank you Patrick for reminding me how long I've been in this, but the first one I'd like to wind the clock back about 30 years. I packed my bags and I headed to a little town on the border of Thailand and Burma, where I used my journalism skills to plot trafficking routes, mostly of women, into Asia and out through the rest of the world. Now, it wasn't easy. I spent 6 months sleeping on a bamboo slat because that's all they had. I spent 6 weeks recovering from a bout of malaria, and I spent a rather frightening 6 minutes running away from a little guy who was chasing us with a gun because a rescue we did of a 12-year-old girl from a brothel went a wee bit pear-shaped. Now, I initially did it because I thought it would be bloody good fun. That didn't quite turn out like that, but a lot of what we did was bloody good fun. In my chase for adventure, I quickly realised that there was more to it than just the adrenaline rush. I realised that one of the most powerful things given to us in our profession is access. Whether we've been talking to prime ministers or rock stars or movie producers or the mongrel who just sold his daughter for the price of a television set, It's all about access into other people's houses, their lives, their minds, their hearts. We share their knowledge, their delight. We share their anguish. It's a privilege, and that's something we always need to respect. The rewards which come with that are absolutely immense. When you see that the most senior police officers in Thailand are suspended because the story you've told exposed them as corrupt. When a multinational corporation such as Disney changes the way it produces its merchandise because you've helped expose child sweatshops. And something as simple as the smile on the face of the 12-year-old girl you dodged bullets for because she's sitting down with her friends learning how to read and write. The rewards, I can assure you, are immense. Now, I'd like to wind the clock forward a little bit, and this is to 10 years ago, and I was lucky enough, I brought it in, lucky enough to win this thing, and it came with a round the world plane ticket. I can assure you I didn't bring it in to show off because you're the guys with the degree, right? So I brought it in because it changed my life. Not in the way you might think. I planned a trip to investigate digital business models, and I'd do that in the United States and Europe. Remember, this is 10 years ago. So it took me 3 months or so just to find enough people who were already ahead of the digital news curve. So I lined them up, I booked accommodation, I organised transport, I was pumped. A week before I was to go, my boss told me I had to change the trip. The future of news, he said, was in printed community newspapers. So I went on the trip, and I went on it as I had planned. And when I returned, my office was packed in the corner of my office in a box. I was the company's new relief editor, not second in charge anymore. So what I would do is I'd fill in for editors when they went on holidays. You know, it was journalism's version of Siberia. But I made it my mission to share my overseas learnings with as many people as I could. I taught myself how to build a website, albeit a little badly. And I shared the vision that stories could be told to new audiences slightly differently. My visits became mentoring sessions. And I too was constantly learning. I worked for News Limited at that point. What I didn't know was that in the background, a white paper that I'd written as a result of my world trip was being circulated as a potential blueprint of how things could be. That, however, was being circulated at Fairfax, the opposition who would then employ me. So we turned one of the country's most traditional mastheads, the Canberra Times, into a digital-first publication. I became the longest-serving editor of Brisbane Times. I wrote course material for universities that is still being taught in 3 states. Some of you may have even seen it. I've been employed by some of Australia's biggest brands to teach them modern ways of connecting with newsrooms. I even wrote a book about it, which is currently being translated into Mongolian, but I'm not quite sure how that's going. Thanks to this, and having the courage to stand by what I believe to be right, my life took an amazing turn for the better, so I couldn't be happier. Now, if I could turn the clock forward just again to 6 months ago. I walked away from the helm of one of Queensland's largest mastheads. Many say I'm bonkers, and they might be proven right yet. But I know that if I have a hunch, I just can't talk about it. If I have a hunch, I have to prove it by doing it. And I believe that as a traditional news model continues to decline, there is a serious role for local government to play in the disbursement of news. Already at Ipswich Council, court cases aside, I've been allowed to build a small newsroom. We're employing journalists, we're creating jobs. And we're telling credible stories about community issues. We're building audiences. Others are already taking a keen interest in what we're trying to achieve. I might be barking up the wrong tree, but I'll be barking bloody loudly and I'll be giving it what I believe to be a red hot crack. Ladies and gentlemen, when I go to sleep at night, I rest easy, knowing that I'm doing things because I believe they are the right thing to do. When I wake up in the morning, I go to work knowing that in some small way that today I'll make a difference. That is what our wonderful profession allows us to do. That's what our wonderful profession will help you to do. Challenge the status quo, embrace technology, and be part of the future. I always say I'd rather be creating the future than sitting idly by watching it happen. I wish you well in your careers, and I hope that in 30 years' time, you can say you've done the right thing, that you can say you've contributed to the greater good, that you've made a difference, because you're empowered to help people live their lives. You're empowered to influence change. You're empowered to be the greater good, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we do. On that note, I applaud you and I wish you well. Thank you.